Hello guys, this new video I'm doing here is an analysis of the recent earthquake that's just occurred in the United States. It's kind of a brief video. I think for those of you who are familiar with my work, you'll know where I'm coming from. So I've done many presentations like this before, looking at earthquakes and whether or not they're artificial or natural, and also comparing them to various nuclear tests, because there is an affinity in terms of the science. Some of those videos I do lots of diagrams and Earth screenshots and arc lengths over the Earth using Google Earth, but I'm just going to give you this one in terms of the raw data, so it saves time. So, as the title of this video suggests, yes, this earthquake that's just occurred in America just yesterday, about 24 hours ago, it is definitely artificial. Okay, so these are some screenshots I took of the event just within hours of it occurring. The first one, this is from the USGS. You can see here the epicenter of it, this little blob in the center of the screen. It's a 4.8 magnitude earthquake. It occurred in New Jersey, about 58 miles or so away from the city of New York. And here's the next slide. This is what we get from the Daily Mail. And here's the first interesting point here. So yes, they give you the image on the left here, showing the epicenter and everything and what fault line it's near to. But then there's also this image here on the right, where they've put the word Lebanon here, because apparently this earthquake is centered near Lebanon, New Jersey. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? Who knew there was a Lebanon in America? Well, I think we all know the connection there. So that's the first thing, the fact that this was planted and even had this own, the Daily Mail team, I assume somebody told them to do this, but they couldn't help but notice that it's near a place called Lebanon, so let's put the big massive label right there, So looking on a bit further, these are some of the details then. So the first screenshot you're looking at here then, giving you the details from USGS, you've got the timestamp, you have the coordinates, the depth and everything. And this is the description of it, right? This is the first one I took just last night when I pressed the print screen button. 4.8, 6 kilometers east-southeast of Califon, New Jersey. This was actually replaced by the next one, which just changed the title, but the details of the earthquake are the same. And it now becomes White House Station, New Jersey. Another little interesting factoid there. So, bearing that in mind then, what do we say about the event itself, and what's the connection science-wise that proves it is artificial? Well, these are two images here I've showed you before. These are in my book you can get from my website, where I do a lengthy analysis of many nuclear weapons. And when you look at them, there is a distinct relationship between the position of the bomb, wherever it's sited, and the ground position of the sun mapped onto the Earth. And there are certain arc length measures, these are great circle arcs, that are instantly present upon activation, right, based upon the pattern, the configuration right there. And these arc lengths are not random. When nuclear tests are done, they try to ensure that these arc lengths are of a certain distance type, they're of a certain length, and that there are harmonics when you split them up, which give you kind of wavelengths, and you'll see an affinity between them. So, as I've mentioned this many times, and my videos are all blacklisted, so I'm assuming if you're watching this video, it's because you're a subscriber. You could go back to the other videos where I explain this in far more detail, but the basic point is, just as an example template here, we've got this circle with the X on. Let's say that's a nuclear bomb. That's where it is when it is detonated. It will have a relationship to the instantaneous location of the sun, which will give you this arc length here, which is D. Also the pure latitude separation between the bomb here, in this example in the northern hemisphere, and just slightly below the equator in the southern hemisphere. The L here is the pure latitude separation arc. And then you've got in the diagram over to the right here, if you look at the longitude separation arc at the equator, you'll have this arc length E between the sun here and the bomb, and you also have these separate components of the pure separation between the event to the equator or the sun to the equator. You'll find that when you evaluate multiple nuclear weapons tests, that when you compare these arc lengths from different tests, they all seem to have basic yet exacting musical ratios, okay? Very astounding stuff, which implies deliberate intent to be operating with certain harmonics, certain wavelength measures. Okay, so that's what the basic science just summarized. So let's have a look at the next slide. And you might want to make this one big because this is the raw data slide. So what we've got here then is a spreadsheet that I've developed, which is just showing you, in this instance, if you look over to here, the first grouping are very prominent nuclear weapons tests or even wartime usages of bombs. These are from the US, Russia, China, the UK, and also France. And in the second grouping here, these 5 events here, we have 5 earthquakes that occurred quite recently in 2023 or 2024. But these earthquakes I assure you, none of them were entirely natural, they were artificial, okay? So when I look at the nuclear weapons events here, then you can see we've got all the data from the archives in terms of the precise time, date of the events, and the magnitude in terms of yield. Then we have the latitude and longitude coordinates of the devices, again taken from archives. And then I use the ICE software, that's the US Naval Observatory's interactive computer ephemeris software, to work out the latitude and longitude of the sun on the ground at the time of the devices when they were activated. So in this case here, declination, as you can see here, north or south, that's pure latitude of the Earth's surface. GHA is Greenwich hour angle, which is just another way of saying longitude. So you can see these values are east and west. And you can see in the next block we've got then in the this headed section here, we've got 5 columns, and these columns then detail the various arc lengths. So for example, the sun to the event, so if it's a nuclear event, it's the direct great circle arc between the sun and the event. That will be equivalent to line D here in this example template, right? So that's what you're getting in this column here. The arc, which is the equator to the sun, is basically an arc length from the equator either down towards the sun if it were in the southern hemisphere, or up towards the sun if it were in the northern hemisphere. And all these values here, guys, are all in feet, by the way, for accuracy. They're just all values in feet. Many of them are, you know, quite a few thousand miles or so, but they're all in feet. Okay? So we also have, again, arc length. This is the equator to the event. So in this case, again, it's just from wherever the equator is going up or down into the either northern or southern hemisphere to wherever the either device was when it was activated, if it's a nuclear device, or the epicenter of the earthquake. The pure latitude separation here, this one here, this is the 4th column here. This is equivalent to this L line here, pure latitude between the event here and also the event, in this case the sun, and the either epicenter of earthquake or when the bomb was activated, right? So that's that column there. And the final one is pure longitude separation. This is on the equator. That's equivalent to E here, an arc length measured in feet between the event taken to the equator and the sun taken to the equator. That's that one. So that's what these values are in these 5 columns. They're all very precise. Okay, and you can see then the final one in bold here, where I've just isolated it, is the earthquake in New York, or at least near it, 50 miles away from it, in New Jersey. And so this is what occurred, and this the basic details are taken straight from the USGS website, from the screenshots I've given you. We've got the coordinates in terms of the epicenter here, north and west, and we've also got the coordinates of the sun. And then you've got in purple here, these 5, these are the 5 associated arc length measures in feet, right, that are linked into the event. So what we're going to do then, what I'm just going to show you, are how these values in purple here connect up to certain values from various prominent nuclear weapons tests here, and also some of these artificial earthquakes, the other earthquakes that have occurred recently, but as I said, not natural. I'm going to show you how some of these mathematical connections reveal basic musical ratios which massively imply that they effectively confirm without any real doubt that the earthquake that's just occurred in the United States just within 24 hours or so was definitely artificial. So this is where I want to draw your attention to it. I'll just go through them in sequence, okay? So you can see then in purple here, these are the values that are associated with the earthquake in America, and I'm going to show you how they're connected to these values here, which are various values associated with these nuclear weapons or other artificial earthquakes, right? So the first thing is, we're going to show you then the ratios. So the ratios are here, right, in this box here. So the first one, this value here, this 252.62142, again in feet, this value is the arc length measure associated with this test here, Grapple Z Halyard 1. This was a British test, 1958, 800 kilotons, quite a very powerful device. And the value here then, when that device went off, the instantaneous arc length from the sun to the bomb itself in feet is this value here. And when you take that value and divide it by the value here associated with the earthquake in America, it's this value. It's the arc length from the equator to the sun. And a simple division sum reveals you get this one here. 1 divided by the other, 10.8005. It's almost exactly 10.8, perfectly. And you see the value here, this is just 1 divided by whatever that value is. So these values here is just 1 divided by wherever they are. So it just turns the fraction upside down, basically. But you can see here, if you were to just for the sake of argument multiply 10.8 by 2, you get 21.6. There are 21,600 minutes of arc in a circle. So this is one of these primary values of the base 60 sexagesimal system used by the Babylonians, right? So you can see these close connections. So that's just the first one. The next one is this one here. It's 584.7378 feet. Again, all values are in feet, and this one is associated with this value here. The Nagasaki attack, 1945. The value in question here then, when the Nagasaki bomb was activated, the precise arc length from the equator to the sun, okay, equator to the sun, which in this case is 16.114 degrees north, right? That is the value right there, present at that time. And if we do a division sum by the same type of value, if we just go further down here, this is the one associated with New York, same kind of value again, arc length from equator to sun. The simple division of one over the other gets almost dead on 2.5. You can see there's 2.4 and then there's 4 nines. Exceptional precision. These are like just a few 100 feet or so in error in terms of perfection of these ratios. And obviously 1 divided by that turning it upside down gives you this 0.4, as you can see here. The next one then is this one here. And this is associated with the Moroccan earthquake that occurred. You can see there, this was September the 8th, 2023. I did a previous video on this showing you the Moroccan earthquake, blatantly artificial, okay? So it's the same arc length, it's from the equator to the sun. That's the value for the Moroccan earthquake. And if you divide that by this value here, which is the pure latitude separation arc between the New York earthquake and the sun, right, the pure latitude arc separation, this one here, simple division there, and you get 0.161998, almost exactly dead on near to 0.162, another very familiar value with these close affinities, with the mathematics. The next one is a link to the Taiwan earthquake that occurred just literally, this was on the 2nd of April, so this was just a few days ago, okay? And it's this value here. Again, it's the arc length from the equator to the event, okay? And this is the value in feet, 8645805 north, right? That divided by the same arc length we just discussed here, pure latitude separation, the New York event, you get this value here, 1 divided by the other, 0.69445. If you just do the 1 divided by, you can turn the fraction over, and what do you get? 1.43997, almost dead on 1.44. For minutes in a day. Total number of minutes in a day is 1,440. Again, it's one of these basic values in terms of the sequence tied into these things, you know. And the next one is perhaps the most intriguing of all. And you can see here, we've got the New York event here, and this value is this one here. It's the arc length from the equator right up to the latitude of the epicenter of the event, okay, which is 40.703, okay, degrees north. And that's what you get there, 14788684 feet, okay. Now, you'll notice the value right next to it is almost identical, okay, which is why when you divide one by the other, you get a value almost dead on 1, basically. The separation difference between these two is 2,500 feet. But what is this value that gets us this ratio? Well, it's this one here. It's the arc length from the equator up to a certain nuclear test that was conducted by China. They just give the code name ID number 21. And this was in 1976. And you can see here the latitude, 40.696 north, almost identical to 40.703. This, as you can also see, the yield of it is 4 megatons. Now this is a very significant device because this is the highest yield nuclear test ever conducted by China as part of their weapons program. Okay, the highest yield one. And I find it quite fascinating here that the latitude of that very test is almost dead on the latitude of this recent earthquake occurred just near to New York. So that's that connection. The final one is this one here. It's almost 26 million dead on. And this is the arc length associated with this nuclear test, Canakin, 4.8 megatons. This was in 1971 and stands on record as being the highest yield underground test ever conducted by the United States. This was on one of the Aleutian Islands called Amchitka. So if we do the division sum of this value divided by this one here, this 144444994, it's this value here. It's the longitude separation between the sun and the epicenter of the New York earthquake. The value there then, one divided by the other gives us this dead on, well, practically dead on 1.8. Again, a basic ratio. So you can see the harmonics in play, you can see the musical signature. So when you consider that because the Earth's rotating on its axis and the sun's moving dynamically over its surface from moment to moment, these arc lengths you can see are always dynamically changing. And the equator, it's a shift of about 1,500 feet every second. So if you bear that in mind, then you can see that to get such precision as we get here with these values here, to get this kind of precision is split-second timing. It's like I've discussed previously. We're talking about some scalar beam weapon system where they fire beams through the Earth. They, in scalar beam form, can penetrate the Earth with ease, but when they connect up at a distant location, this forms the epicenter of the earthquake because that's when the energies re-emerge and unlock. So we might be asking ourselves, who was responsible for the earthquake? I would say China. I think China created this earthquake in the United States near to New York, and they also did the Taiwan earthquake just a few days earlier as well. They were responsible for both of them. And this is a geopolitical provocation. It's like we don't like what you're doing. And it's obvious when you think about it that you've got US troops in Taiwan. Obviously, China does not like that. Okay, so they've struck Taiwan with a certain earthquake to give them a warning about that. And also, they don't like what Israel's doing, you know. Obviously, that's when you think about the Lebanon connection, the United States massively supports Israel, so they are also giving them a warning about that. So I think that these events have basically been done by China to put the US on notice to not escalate things further with regards to Taiwan or with what Israel's doing. Will the US take heed? Will the neocon types take it? I don't think so. They obviously seem to want war, so you've got to think they'll probably want to escalate things further here. So we'll just have to see what happens. But if there are any other major earthquakes to occur, I'll do an evaluation of those as well. But for now, I'll just leave it here. But for me, I think that earthquake that occurred just 24 hours ago in New York, or about 50 miles from the actual city, I think it was definitely artificial, and I do think that China was responsible for it, as well as Taiwan, the Taiwan earthquake just a few days earlier. Anyway, if you like what I'm doing, you can subscribe, hit that like button, there's a lot of bell notification stuff. Only a few hundred people will no doubt ever see this video, because I don't do many videos, and not only this, my website is pretty much blacklisted as well by Google, so it is what it is. But we'll leave it there, guys, and that's all I've got to say, really.